Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Wednesday, the second day of the month of July, 2025. Wednesday of the 13th week of the year, the 13th week in Ordinary Time. Still in Phoenix, but as you can see, a tad bit cloudy this morning. And it's not as oppressively hot. It will be 105 today, but it's 90 something already. But as it is, July and August bring some rains, so the monsoon season, as you can call it, will begin soon. And the thing is, it is like clockwork. So July 1, you begin to feel a change. So even with climate change, there is still irregularity with the weather systems and things like that. So still here at the Casa. This is the front part of the St. Mary the Angels Chapel, the great statue of St. Francis, which greets people as they go down Lincoln Road, which is the road right over here. Again, Camelback Mountain right behind me over here again. But you can see again the clouds have come in already. So not a blue sky today in Felix as everyone wakes up. But yeah, still doing work with the Fundraisers Conference, the great bell tower right here behind me over here. Again, the entrance into the Casa right over here. If you ever get to Phoenix, come to the Casa. You can walk through the grounds. You can visit everything. You don't have to be staying here for a retreat or anything else like that. So that's the only advertisement I would give about it. But on this Wednesday of the 13th week of the year, story of Abraham continues. This time, so we've missed where Sarah doesn't believe she's going to have a child, and she laughs at it, and the three visitors say, you laughed, and that's not a good thing to do, and God's got a plan for you. But God doesn't punish Sarah. It just is all weird. So anyway, but these two readings today are still also weird. The first reading from Genesis, Abraham has Isaac, and now Sarah gets jealous. Again, Sarah is painted as a very problematic person, and that's always a question. So, why is she painted in this way? Because Abraham is also problematic because he has no backbone and he has no sense of what's going on and what's happening. And so the situation is Isaac has been born. Sarah is now jealous because Hagar, the servant woman who bore Ishmael, because Sarah told Hagar to sleep with Abraham so he could have an heir, but God didn't want that kind of an heir, and so Sarah treats Hagar bad, but Hagar goes back to Sarah, and it's a very toxic relationship with all of these people. It certainly is. I mean, you can't say anything else but decide that it's being a toxic relationship. And so within all of this, then you have the situation of Sarah's jealousy. That Ishmael has been born first, and the question, will he inherit everything? And Sarah certainly doesn't want that for her son. So chase Hagar away with Ishmael. Just chase them into the desert, and who cares about them? And God says, let this happen. But God said, let this happen because I'll take care of Hagar. Well, he doesn't tell Hagar that. And so Hagar goes out into the desert, wandering. There's no more water. There's no more food. The child is crying. Hagar says, we're all going to die. And then all of a sudden God appears, and says, oh, no, don't worry. You're going to be a great nation, and here's some water. And so there are two great nations. And if Islam traces its origins to Ishmael, and that kind of promise, well, there's nothing more that's ever said, in the Hebrew scriptures, about this. And the question is always, are there indeed then two great nations? But is one better loved by God? It's a very, again, problematic story, for us to look at, which again raises the question of those inspired writers, of these scriptures. Again, human error still flies in the face of it, and or still flies into it at times. And while there is truth in all of it, we have to be careful, again, of what we're reading and not reading, and of what we are reading and the problems it presents. Again, this is where God seems to have things under control, but does he really? And is it because of our inability to see this that we think he doesn't have anything under control? Or, is this all something that we, need to look at much more deeply? In any event, it's kind of this complicated story, but it is, and again, in a way, if you look at what is good that can be gained from this, well, both Hagar and Sarah have children, and the children are cared for. So in the end, while God does seem to do strange things, God does demonstrate care, and compassion for those who most in need. I guess we can leave it at that. In the Gospels, though, in the Gospel from Matthew, we have the great swineherds and demons and pigs, episode, which the Amityville Horror made a whole big, much massive money out of. But this is where, again, two people who seem to be possessed, however that was understood, are uncontrollable, and they're screaming at Jesus, have you come to destroy us before the appointed time? It's like, and then Jesus basically, says, he says, or they say, throw us into the swine if you're going to destroy us. But this is where there's a whole big problem. Again, eating pork was not something that was a Jewish habit. And so why are there swineherds anyway? Well, because Galilee was a crossroads of different kinds of civilizations, and it wasn't just Jewish Hebrews who were there. All kinds of different people were there. And so some did herd swine and had pigs. The Israelites didn't eat them, but others did. And so this is a guy's livelihood, or a couple of people's livelihood. And this, the swine go mad because the demons are in them, and they go over a cliff and they die. Well, there's a whole livelihood gone, because Jesus did this. And did he go back and, and help the swineherds? Again, this is where he helps Hagar. Did he help the swineherds? Doesn't say. The swineherds just run away, and everybody asks him to leave their town because he's made a mess of things. So this is where, again, who's in control and what is going on, and this great demonstration of power over negative forces in the world kind of backfires, on Jesus. And it's something to think about, again, within all of this, that it isn't just a cut and dry, happy story, when it comes to, the proclamation of the gospel, that there are ups and downs, and there are things that just don't seem to make sense, and things that we have to reflect upon more, as to what their meaning is. It shows Jesus' power over evil. Great. But those poor swineherds and their livelihood, gone to pot because they went over a cliff, not so good. So where does this leave us again? This is where ordinary time, should ask us to think more deeply always, again, about this faith that we possess, this faith that is now vindicated in Jesus' death and resurrection, and the wonder and the glory, again, of everything that we experience as people of faith in this world. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.